Ready. Welcome, everyone. Today's episode on the Good in the Head podcast, I have my good friend and mentor and teacher, Jason Archer. I really appreciate you taking the time out to be a part of this content creation today.
It's always a pleasure, my friend.
Let's start out today's show by asking you kind of what you've been up to. I know you've been really busy with the gym that you started, and just wanted to play catch up on everything that you've been busy doing. I know you've been out of town a few times and done some races and different things. Tell everybody what you've been up to.
Yeah, so this summer's been pretty crazy. I mean, with people coming back from COVID, things kind of getting back to normal. The gym has been busier than it has been, obviously, over the last 18 months or so. And then, of course, Christina and I have been actively involved in doing some Spartan races, which kind of goes along with our mantra of doing hard things, right? So we were up in Utah. We spent a week up there. We did a Spartan race that took us up to almost 9,000 feet in elevation. And, just spent some time spending, catching up with some friends in the area, spent some time in the rivers, just catching up on the scenery and taking some photos and just relaxing a little bit, taking a break from the gym. We had some good people running the gym in our absence. And then, most recently we had hired a business coach, and our business coach has been keeping us extremely busy with, assignment after assignment after assignment. It seems like there's, always something to do there. So between the writing that I normally do, the content creation that I normally do, the gym, the travel, and now the business coaching side of things, it's been a little bit busy, but it's been good. And this past week, I was kind of under the weather. So coming out of that, up until today's probably the first time I felt good in about a week. So it's been life, man. What else can you say?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the pictures of the places you went to in Utah, and years and years ago, I used to live up there, and I've been to those places and stuck my feet in the same streams, and it is just gorgeous. The pictures you shared were amazing.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The first time I went through Utah was I drove to Calgary, Canada to visit Christina. And, of course, I was on the expressway the whole time, so I didn't see much of anything other than just flat land and desert. But when you get on the northeast and the eastern side of the state into the mountains, it's amazing the amount of terrain change that you see. I mean, we were driving through aspen forests at 8,000 feet that were just thick. Like, I've never seen that many aspens in one place in my entire life. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful place in a lot of areas. And there's a lot of land that is sort of untouched, unspoiled by man, if you will. Lots of little 2-lane roads. And it was just nice to get away from, the city and see some of those things and just reconnect with what life is all about.
Yeah. It looked amazing, man. I know that I had wanted to come and do an activity with you guys at your gym, probably about a month and a half ago. And I opted out wisely. I wasn't feeling well. And I was like, you know what? This may be a little too much for me at this point.
Right.
And I was at first a little ashamed because I made a commitment. I really wanted to do it. And then I was like, you know what? I need to be in better shape in order to complete something like that. It was push-ups, running, pull-ups. And I was like, I could totally do this. However, I needed to be present for my wife the next day. And I knew that if I did that with you guys, there was no way I was going to be of any use to her the next day.
Yeah. Yeah. That tends to happen sometimes, for sure.
Oh, man. You guys do some really incredible things at your gym. For those of you who don't know Jason, can you let everyone know how to find you on social media, and then where your gym is and the kinds of things that you help people do over there?
Yeah, so we're at CrossFit North Phoenix. So CrossFitNorthPhoenix.net online. If you're interested in the gym, obviously you need to be in the North Phoenix area to make that work. But we do remote coaching in terms of nutrition and mindset training. My wife does a lot of the nutrition stuff. I do a lot of the mindset stuff. And basically, we're just trying to help people become the best versions of themselves within the context of the life that they're living. So, nutrition seems to be something that a lot of people are struggling with. Obviously, over the last year or so, a lot of this was brought to bear with COVID. We saw a lot of people hospitalized because of the fact that they had let themselves go. And, the vast majority of people who were impacted greatly, by COVID were indeed overweight or had respiratory issues already or had diabetes or heart trouble, all the things that you need to be able to, execute physically in the world. All of those systems are compromised in some way, shape, or form. So nutrition is certainly a huge foundation for that. And Christina does a really good job of working with people and helping them understand how to build a plate, what their macros should look like, and that sort of thing. And then, of course, in the gym, we're just doing hard things. We throw weight around, we do gymnastics, we run, we weight lift, we do a little bit of everything. Obviously, because it's CrossFit, that's a bit of the methodology. It just comes down to, the reality is what we do in the gym is a metaphor for everything we do in life. And so there's always an obstacle that we either want to get over, or there's always a goal that we want to attain that's on the other side of a hard thing. And the gym represents all of those things, right? Like you want a good body, but you don't want to go to the gym, or you want to lift heavy weight, but you don't want to lift consistently enough to get there. And those are just the lessons that life teaches us. If you want to build a business or a relationship or have a family or whatever the thing is, it requires constant investment in those things. And hard things can come from a myriad of sources, whether they're physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, whatever terminology you want to use. That's kind of the basis of the philosophy there inside the gym. And so we welcome all people. We have people who are overweight, we have people who have injuries, we have people who are extremely fit, we have people who are not very fit, and they're all welcome. And we always do our best to scale workouts to meet them where they're at. And then, of course, when they're struggling, I'll pull them aside and I'll have a little mindset conversation with them and see if we can't keep people plugged in. But at the highest level, that's basically what CrossFit North Phoenix represents, which is a physical version of all of the mental work that has to be done to be successful in this world.
I know with the whole COVID crisis or whatever you want to call it, there was a long time where a lot of us, we quit going outside. We quit doing things. We certainly quit going to the gym since they were all closed down. Everyone was confined to wear masks, whether it was work or in public. And they rolled out these different vaccines. And it's interesting, a lot of people that are super healthy that we know have gotten the vaccine. And then within a month of getting that, not all of them, of course, a small number of them have had some heart issues, strokes. I've got a buddy in a rehab center right now that's 40 years old, great shape, and within a week of getting a vaccine, he ended up having quite a few blood clots and strokes, and he's relearning how to use his body and talk again. He can think, he's all there, he's inside there, but his body's different. Right. There's a lot of creation of fear within media that has happened that has sort of shut people's minds and lives down entirely, confined them to their homes where normally people aren't used to working out or thinking about the most nutritious choices or, all these different things. So I'd love to, while gyms are starting to open again and public open, I've noticed that they're trying to put into the minds of the masses yet again, like a new variant, a third go round, and the necessity for these shots, that people get to protect them from this. I was wondering what your take is on all that, and if you've got any suggestions for people that have been sort of confining themselves to a home life rather than getting out and doing things out in public.
Yeah, sure. I absolutely have an opinion on this, and I've vocalized it several times. And I feel like what's being stressed is secondary to what should be stressed. And that is the fact that you get one body, at least until the singularity. until Ray Kurzweil helps us merge with machines. You get one body, and it's up to you to invest in that machine, that biological machine that you've been given, to give it its best chance of survival in the world. And what we've done in the modern world is we've created a religion around safety. Everything is safe. You see kids, as a kid, we had skateboards, right? And we would roll down the street, down the biggest hill we could, no helmets, no pads, no nothing. If we fell, we fell. And that was just how it is. Today we have skateboards with handlebars, which is really interesting to me. And kids are doing these tricks on these little, they call them scooters. But to me, it's like, okay, well, where's the real challenge? You have a handlebar on it, right? It's not a big deal. But everything's relative. But it just points to the fact that everything is safer today. This was one of many, many, many things that's safer today, whether it's a skateboard, whether it's helmet laws, whether it is car seat laws, whether it's seatbelt laws, whether it is driving while texting laws. All these different things are meant to sort of to sort of infantilize an adult and cause them not to think. And the big problem with the COVID thing is that people are not thinking, because they've outsourced their thinking to the quote unquote authorities, who somehow have arrived at the best of everything, even though they don't have any results to back it up. And so in my world, I'm basing my judgments and my nuanced opinions on results, right? So who's creating results? Well, from what I've seen, healthy people are largely unaffected. And so what that's telling me, both in the very muddy COVID data that's been put out, I mean, it's extremely muddy. So, but from what I can separate signal from noise, and anecdotally, those who are most impacted are those who are compromised in some way, shape, or form physically, and possibly mentally, because you have to realize that if you're eating too much, or you're binging on Netflix, or if you're not moving, or you're drinking too much, or you're doing this, that, the other thing, you're numbing yourself to something. So something mentally is going on. Depression rates are through the roof. And the rate of sedentary living is also through the roof. So if we are sedentary, we're not feeling good, we're on some level depressed, we're sedating, I feel like the first step should be to move, right? So just get up off the couch and go for a walk. Just move. When you move, you will feel differently. That is step one, right? Move, start feeling differently, right? Take a small step, and then start adding good things into your level of nourishment. And your nourishment comes from what you view and hear, also in what you swallow and drink, right? So drink more water, eat more healthy foods, right? Just start there and see if that doesn't change your outlook, and see if that doesn't change how you feel about your way of showing up in the world, right? And then when it comes to the vaccine piece, there's been a tremendous amount of fear put into the world around what vaccines are and what they're not. And the reality is a vaccine has never prevented contraction of a disease, ever, nor does it prevent the spread of a disease. And yet these things have been put into the world. A vaccine prepares your body for the invaders that it's going to get. That's what it does. And it doesn't prevent contraction. It doesn't prevent contraction nor transmission. And we've been conditioned to believe that if you get a vaccine, that all of a sudden your problems are solved.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've already seen from the adverse effects database, not just from this nation, but from Europe and many other countries. And Tess Lowry's done a lot of great work on this, if you want to look her up. The adverse effects database on the COVID vaccine is through the roof. It doesn't even chart with other vaccines because the numbers are so high. So there's something there. Obviously, this was fast-tracked. It's been released under emergency order. So is it tested? No, it's not. Is it ready for prime time? Probably not. Does that mean I'm anti-vax? Absolutely not. My father was born in 1949, and before he was 1 year old, he contracted polio. He just missed the polio vaccine, so that caused him to lose the use of his right leg, and he's dragged his right leg around his entire life. Now, do I wish he had been able to get the polio vaccine? Absolutely. Absolutely. It was proven, it worked, it saved many, many lives and basically eradicated the disease. But I would want him to have that based on results. The results are highly positive, right? And so at the end of the day, when you're looking at and weighing your risk I feel like the first thing you should always do is what you yourself are capable of doing. That is move, that is eat, that is get sunlight, that is feed your mind, that is be in a positive space, that is surround yourself with people and things that uplift you, right? And then if you find yourself still at risk and you want to take a shot with something more drastic like a vaccine, then go for it. Go for it. Certainly not anti you doing that. I'm pro freedom. If you want it, go get it. If you want to take another path, then take that path, right? I have no judgment either way. I just don't want to force you or me or anyone else to do something that they don't want to do. So that's kind of where I come down on it.
I love that. The pro freedom thing has sort of become an issue in my mind as of late. They're talking about requiring this to travel, requiring it
Yes.
to keep your job. Many nurses and doctors are refusing it and being let go.
Yes.
And the freedom is being lost. And I'm not really big on conspiracy theories, but results, like you said, don't lie. And if there's a number of doctors and nurses that are refusing to get it, that tells me something. And it makes me start to question some things. I know at work, they've been kicking around the idea of making it a requirement. And at that point, we'll have a decision to make. Do we want to stay in our workplace or maybe go off and do something else? They did mandate masks, and then anybody who got a vaccine was rewarded by not having to wear their mask anymore.
Right.
And my wife sort of raised her hand and said, okay, so the term super spreaders has been going around. People that have been vaccinated now feel invincible. They go anywhere and everywhere. And even though they've got the vaccine, they still contract the disease with no symptoms. And then literally become super spreaders to everyone that they're around. And when she first said that months ago, I was like, oh my God, that's a great point. I never would have thought of that. And then just recently now the numbers have been going back up, and they've told everyone it's a requirement. Whether you're vaccinated or not, you have to wear a mask to work now. And I thought that was kind of interesting.
It really is. I mean, the reality about the mask is that, if you're going around and you're spitting on people, and you're spewing droplets into the air, there's going to be some effect there. But the reality is that in terms of the size of the organism, the thread, the difference between the size of the organism and the hole in the thread is massive. So, depending on how much you force or push, something's getting through. I think the biggest travesty about the mask was early in this whole thing was the word on the street was, oh, well, the mask is going to protect you if you go into public. And then they let all of the major retailers and all the major grocery stores stay open, of course. So, everything on the shelf has been touched multiple times by multiple people. Every aisle has been walked multiple times by multiple people, breathing, touching their face, touching their eyes, touching, putting things in their carts, and then hitting keypads. And they had all of these sort of smoke and mirror protections in order. And what I noticed was that older people and obese people, when I would go shopping, I would see these people in the stores, and these are the people who are at risk based on the numbers. And they're wearing the mask as if it is going to save them. And so I feel like what happened with that, and I've heard several doctors talk about this opinion as well, is it's this false sense of security that if you're at risk and you put a mask on, then now all of a sudden you're okay. And that is just simply not reality. It's just simply not reality. The surgical mask was never designed for a non-sterile environment, and you had people who were politicizing this. I collect comics, all these red boxes behind me are full of comics. And every Wednesday, is New Comic Book Day. So I go to the comic shop, and the store owner there, both he and his wife have been wearing an N95 mask for almost 2 years now, right? And they still wear the mask every single day. Initially, they were wearing gloves. So you walk in and they had gloves on. And this was exceptionally horrendous because, when you're in a medical environment, you see someone wearing gloves, they take the gloves off when they leave the room. And they do that because anything they touch in the room is now contaminated. So they were wearing the gloves to quote unquote protect themselves and others. But the reality is everything they touched was now on the gloves. and they weren't changing the gloves, right? They just wear the same pair of gloves all day long. And so there's all this crazy, just insane behavior around like PPE, personal protective equipment, that made no sense whatsoever, that was not applicable outside of a sterile environment. And people were, taking this stuff on as if it was going to save them. And of course, they're out of shape. Of course, they're overweight. And yet these store owners are still, wearing the mask and the gloves to this day. And they don't realize that they're actually spreading it that much more, touching that much more, creating that much more contamination, because they've been miseducated, by what they've seen on television or whatever the case may be. And it's unfortunate, but to see people place themselves at risk because they thought this Band-Aid that they put over their face was going to save them, and they decided to go out in public, I think it's probably created more cases than it's actually, prevented. Because, anyone my age or younger, 50 years old or younger, and especially kids, I mean, there's almost no risk at all. That doesn't mean that there is no risk. There's almost no risk, right? And so it makes about as much sense as wearing a helmet to walk down the sidewalk. Sure, you might fall, but the chances of you falling while walking are pretty slim.
Hopefully, yeah.
Are you going to wear a helmet? Well, maybe, but it's foolish. It's absolutely foolish. So, I think at the end of the day, that's why everybody has to make their own decisions. But the biggest thing is people need to turn the stupid television off.
And quit believing everything that they hear, rather than
It only exists to create fear. It only exists to create fear, and a fearful people is easy to control. And to me, that's what this whole thing has been about, because the numbers have never justified any of these activities. And, the people who died or did die, again, the data is so dirty. We don't know who died of COVID and who died with COVID. There's a tremendous difference between the two. And when the CDC pointed this out, there was this massive sort of backlash between who died with and who died of. And because the data is unclear, and because people have been scared into believing one thing over another, and it's been politicized, you have this modern zeitgeist to where we've created an us versus them. If you don't wear your mask, you're harming me. If you don't get your vaccine, you're harming me.
Yeah.
Just total nonsense. And
people
shows
are very opinionated about what we should be doing for them.
Yeah,
and
of course. Yeah, exactly.
And I like the idea that, the one thing that separates us and makes us easy to control is fear,
100%.
And the opposite of fear is just love, and if we can begin to upregulate our immune system through certain practices and things we think and do, then the fear kind of dissipates and it goes away as long as we do it repetitiously and consistently. And that's one big thing that I really wanted to discuss with you today, is what are some things that anybody can do, absolutely anybody, no matter what their current health or lifestyle may be like, what their current state of fear may be. What are the best practices, in your opinion, for people to do in order to upregulate not just their physical immune system, but also their ability to emotionally and mentally realign in a way that will empower them to be healthier and to stay that way, regardless of everything that's going on?
Yeah, from the emotional side, I mean, you have to get out of a stress state. I mean, that's number one. And you can't not be in a stress state if you're watching the nightly news every day and listening to talk radio, and especially listening to one side, because that's what people do. I'm a Republican, so I'm listening to Fox News, or I'm a liberal, so I'm listening to CNN, MSNBC, and one of the other thousands and thousands of left-leaning, organizations out there that pump their garbage into your mind, right? So at the end of the day, you've got to get rid of that. You've got to turn that off. And this is one reason we don't have cable television in our home. We never have, since Christine and I have been married. And, I got rid of it back in 2008. And so for the last 13 years, I've been unaffected by that. And I really identify with that meme, where it's a photo of, some guy in the woods, and it just says, somewhere there's some guy in the woods with no cell phone that doesn't know he's supposed to be scared and sick. And that's just the truth, right? That doesn't mean you have to be uninformed, because at the end of the day, if you're connected to anyone on any level, If there's something close to you that's going to impact your life, you will find out about it, right? And being first isn't necessarily necessary, so you're going to hear about what impacts your neighborhood, what it impacts your neighbors, and that's what you should focus on. But when the mainstream media went 24 hours, you had cable news popping online, the next thing they did was they had to have content to fill those hours. So now not only is it what's happening in your neighborhood, it's what's happening in Asia, what's happening in a foreign country that you're never going to impact or have no stake in the outcome, you have nothing to do with, and it will never reach your doorstep. Now all of a sudden that's your problem. So the world got smaller in a bad way. It's like, let's pipe in all the fear from around the world and into your living room 24 hours a day. And the cure for that is just to turn off the TV and look out your window. And if you look out your window, you will see a world that doesn't line up with the world that they just showed you on the idiot box, right? I mean, it's very, very simple. But until you gain the awareness of that, you're going to think, like a lot of people do who are IV'd into, the nightly news, that the nightly news is reality, and it isn't. It's just simply not. You have more in common with your neighbor than you don't. And, if you'll notice everything that I've been posting around COVID, or, on the rare occasion that I mentioned something political, I talk about it from both sides, because both sides are valid on some level, and there's nuance to everything, right? You can't just be all, you can't just pick a side and stay on that side all the time, because then you're part of a group, and the minute you're part of a group, you're wrong, because the group is always wrong. So at the end of the day, you have to be an individual. And so mentally, that is the key. You have to guard your mind. You have to be a vanguard to, that fertile soil in your head, and watch the seeds that you cast into it. And if what you're casting into it is creating stress and chaos in your life, you're not going to be at peace, and you're not going to sleep well. You're not going to be at the greatest vibration that you can be. You're not going to feel good. You're not going to feel hopeful. You're going to feel, all these depressing emotions, sadness. You're going to feel out of control, because all of these things are happening, like I said, in South America, and you can't control that, right? But what's happening in your house, what's happening on your front door, you can control that. You have a lot, you can exercise your agency around that. And that's where you want to exist and be. So from the emotional side, I think that is the key for the vast majority of the population right now. From the physical side, it's like I said before, take a small step, just start moving. Always have control over how you move during the course of the day. Even if you have some form of sickness or disability, you have control over how you move throughout the course of the day. You can do whatever you decide to do within the confines of this thing you call a body. I was sick all last week, and I still got up and I made myself do 10 burpees, even though I was nauseated, right? Just to prove to myself that I could do that, right? And no one knows that. And like, no one's going to congratulate me. Oh, 10 burpees, big deal. Or I walked around the block, big deal. Well, it was a big deal because I wasn't feeling good. And when I did those things, I knew that I was still alive and that I still had some control over my destiny. I still had control over what I put in my mouth. I still had control over, what I visually decided to take in. All these forms of nourishment I had full control over. So if you just realize that your emotional state is determined by what you feed yourself, and your physical state is controlled by what you do and what you feed yourself, then you can realize that you have a lot of power and agency in that, and that you are not a victim in most cases, right? In most cases, you are not. So what we've gotten to with the religion of safetyism is we've stopped holding people capable. Everybody's a victim, everybody is a part of this group or that group, and this group got hurt by that group, and blah, 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 blah. No. You're an individual. Okay. You are an individual. It doesn't matter what skin you're born in. It doesn't matter what environment you're born in. You are an individual, and you can decide for yourself if you have the balls to do that. So you have to make a choice. Do I want to be, sort of programmed by the people around me? Or do I want to look out further than the people around me and decide, hey, this isn't necessarily the life that I want, or I don't feel good, or I don't feel worthy, or I don't feel loved in this environment or fulfilled in this environment. Okay, well, what do I have to do to satisfy that? And then you have to make a new choice. Are you going to numb out to the fact that you're experiencing that pain? or are you going to take a step in a different direction and, look for some, mental and physical nutrition in a different area? And it really just comes down to realizing that you have the power and agency to do that. And if you surround yourself with people who constantly tell you don't, then, chances are you got what you got. So
Sooner
what
or
do you
later, you're
want?
going to buy into what they're telling you.
Yeah, what do
They'll
you want?
program you.
That's it.
I love what you said about proving to yourself that you could still do something, even though you just did not feel like it.
That's right.
David Goggins is a huge proponent of this idea. He says that when you are completely physically and mentally exhausted, when you feel almost hopeless, in the physical body, you're right around 40% of what you're actually capable of. And I was like, excuse me, what? And he's kind of living proof that is true for
Yeah,
anyone who chooses for that to be their truth.
that's
And
right.
then the fact that you are still doing your best, no matter what. I've got a quote on my wall from Don Miguel Ruiz from the Fourth Agreement. It says, always do your best. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. It
Mm-hmm.
will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. Under
Right.
any circumstance, simply do your best and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and self-regret.
100%. I love that. And Don Miguel Ruiz, that when I read that book years ago, I think I cried on every other page. There was just so many revelations in that book. And the whole idea of doing your best, is one of them, one of the major of the four agreements, right? I forget what they all four are, like don't take anything personally, always do your best, be impeccable with your word. And I forget what the fourth one is. But those four tenets, if people decide to live into those, it's going to be very difficult to have a bad life.
Yeah.
It
Super
just really
simple.
is.
Super
Yeah, it's
simple.
very simple, very difficult to have a bad life. And so, yeah, that whole idea behind the quote that you just read off, is to me extremely powerful. And I feel like anyone could benefit from just internalizing that idea that your best is going to be different from day to day. Not even, this is the whole problem with quote unquote modern equality is, if you take two people from the same environment, they could be twins, they could have the same biology, and you test them on different days, right? There's always going to be some form of inequity. It doesn't matter that they're the same person in the same skin from the same group in the same neighborhood with the same income level. There's always going to be some form of inequity. That's nature, right? There's no two trees that are exactly the same, and there's no flora or fauna that's not constantly living and dying. That's just the way life works. And to try to make it such that it isn't goes against nature. So to think that you're going to be at the same level on every single day is absolutely ridiculous, because your environment is going to play, your physicality is going to play, the people around you are going to play on you every single day. And you've got to either find ways to solve those problems and rise above and either exceed what you did the day before, or either, get as close to it as you can. But if you're always doing what you can, then you never have a reason to feel bad about yourself. You just don't. Right. I mean, that you leave it all out there, then what else could you have done? Nothing, nothing. And the same man, the same woman is not going to be the same, at the same level on different days, right? Like I might run a mile today and feel good, and tomorrow I might struggle, and it might take me an extra 3 minutes because I'm struggling, right? You're not going to be the same every single day. So
And
learning to accept that is, I think, just a part of maturity.
yeah, maybe I'm finally growing up then, because just recently I decided to alter my belief about this topic exactly. I used to think, that consistency equaled stability. And if I can't have a consistent mood or a consistent state of health, if I couldn't eat consistently or have a consistent nutrition, intake that was empowering and creative for my body. And, you know, basically the belief was inconsistency equals brokenness.
Mm.
And when I was reminded of just doing my best and the fact that if I compare myself to others, it's sort of destructive to my own creation of this quote unquote self. And if I were just to compare myself to myself rather than others, that it was much more useful. I found myself more empowered, not going through any kind of self-judgment, self-abuse and regret, and shame. And I just can't believe that I spent my entire life thinking that that one belief was the belief to have, when there are just so many limitless beliefs to play around with and try on. Um, I love the point you made about, different things that we can do to take back our energy and to take back our power through individuality and individual thinking, and not having cable on in the house, and not zoning in and focusing in a hyper vigilant way on what everyone else says you should be thinking on. You've got some practices such as writing every day and sharing on social media your viewpoints. And I've noticed that in the past few years, since I've been following with you and online, I get to read your things that you put out every day, and your writing skills have completely altered in a very impressive way. The life, the health, the mental health that you're enjoying, I've watched as you do these hard things consistently and done your best at them every day. No matter how you feel, you always show up. And that has inspired me and many others as well to continue on and to keep going when we just don't feel like it anymore, when we're overcome with fear or all the distractions of daily life. There are certain things we can do to realign with true self, with source, and to just keep going in the most beautiful way that we possibly can as individuals, instead of giving away our power of thought and individuality to a group that wants us to conform to whatever they want in order to benefit them in any way. But vibration was the word that I heard in what you were saying. And to vibrate at a higher level, there are certain things that we can be doing on a daily basis. And I really would love to funnel people in your direction on Hardwater, on the Facebook group, on Instagram, your Jason Archer account. I mean, the writing that you've shared has altered my viewpoints and improved a lot of my beliefs and made me realize that, hey, my one way of doing things isn't the only way of doing everything, and the results that you've gotten from the life that you've built with your wife are truly impressive. And I've implemented a lot of practices that I've learned through you. And writing every day is absolutely one of those things that has been so empowering. Are you still writing about the Course in Miracles on a daily?
No, I'm not. And the reason that I'm not is because I found that a lot of the concepts were so sort of muddy that even even for me, like someone who studies this stuff every day, a lot of the concepts were so muddy and could be simplified to a much greater extent that it really wasn't benefiting people. I mean, like I don't want to be the person who puts out stuff that doesn't make any sense, or who that doesn't have the potential to create some form of hook. And a lot of the stuff, and I've talked to a few people who've tried to get through the Course in Miracles, and basically they're kind of in that same boat. It's really, really muddy. And when you understand the origins of it, it becomes really easy to let go of. So I've been the type of person where I would obsess about going from start to finish in a thing, whether it was a book or a course or what have you. But the reality is there are certain books and courses that don't deserve your attention. And so if you start a book that's not impacting you, you need to put it down or find a new chapter in that book and go through that, right? I mean, life is too short. And so with the Course in Miracles, I found that it was so wordy and so muddy that it wasn't impacting me. And that if I couldn't translate it in a way that impacted other people, that just wasn't worth me doing. And that doesn't mean there's not value in it. There certainly is. And there have been people who have, gained a lot from it. But once you read about it and you realize that how it came to be was this sort of divining, this sort of divine channeling sort of a thing. So if you believe in all that stuff, great. But then the woman who actually divined it didn't actually believe in it either. which is kind of odd, and never used the tools. So although the tools I believe are valid, and it's a great way of, I think, sort of combining Christianity with personal development, because once you get through the first part, the rest of it is like rehashing the same concepts, but just in a different way.
Mm.
And, obviously there's certain amount of value in going deeper with the concepts, but there's also a certain amount of devaluing that comes from not making them simple and plain. And I feel like the most elegant explanations are usually the simplest ones.
Now, you're really good at cutting through all the bullshit and getting straight to the point.
I do my
What do you
best on that, right?
decide? Like on a daily basis, you put out things that you work on and you write that are really phenomenal. But how is it that you go about deciding what to write about when you sit down to write?
For me, it's just what I'm feeling that day, usually, right? From the business side of things, when I'm trying to attract a client, if there's a particular topic that I might hold on to for that week, I might put different versions of that topic out that I think would speak to the person I want to help, right? But for the most part, when I'm free writing, like on my Instagram or in Hardwater One, for example, I'm free writing from a place of this is what impacted me today, right? I've got a bank of thousands and thousands of quotes, and I feel like quotes are really like where it's at, because if you go through a book, right, like you can go through a book like I don't know, there's 100 books, hundreds of books on my shelf here, and I could pull any one of them out and they'll have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of words, but then there'll be that one sentence or that 2 sentence phrase that crystallizes 500 pages, right? And if you can get to that and you have a certain bank of those, I think that's more valuable than having like a big collection of books.
Mhm.
And so I keep a log of quotes that have impacted me. And every day when I write, I flip through that log and I'm constantly adding to it as well. You've posted a lot of stuff that I've stolen quotes from and put in my little index. And I'm flipping through there. And if one just happens to hit me right, then I'll write about its impact on my life, or how I've used it in my daily life, or how and why I feel it's important. And for me, that's just an easy way of constantly having something to draw on, and constantly having, that discipline about, okay, well, it's a new day, something is due and I'm blank. Okay, well, no, I'm not blank. There's a lot of things here and there's a lot of different angles, and let me just flip through and let me see. Oh, you've already spoken about that? Great. Did you speak about it from this angle? Or how about from this other angle? Or is it still valid even? Where here's a quote and I don't believe it anymore, right?
Yeah.
Or here's a phrase and I feel like now that I've learned some more, it's total bullshit, right? Like, so, excuse me. So there's still, 1,000 different ways you can come at it, but that's kind of my process. And I feel like that sort of freedom is what I need in order to make myself, sit down and actually write. And if you'll notice, over the last week and a half or so, I've been really sporadic on Instagram because I've been doing so much on Facebook. And so the challenge has been, how do I balance, the writing on Facebook with the writing on Instagram, because there's only a certain number of characters that I could put in that caption.
Mhm.
And yet I don't want to lose the impact of the article that I'm writing. Facebook doesn't limit that. Instagram does. So do I want to cut it down and make it mean less to me?
Mhm.
Or is there a way that I can cut out 50% of the words and still have it have high impact and play editor that way, and still, create something of value on the Insta side? But normally my go-to is to write up on Instagram each day, a write up in Hardwater One each day, and then a couple write-ups and live videos on the Facebook side of things each day. And they all come from purpose. What is the purpose behind this? Or what's the current event that I want to address? Or what is the concept that hit me hard this morning when I was thinking or meditating or whatever the case may be?
Awesome. I know you're a big time meditator, as am I. That's something relatively new for me. I remember my mother telling me you need to start meditating. For about 2 years, she was telling me this, and I know. I just was ambivalent. I didn't know which direction to go. There's so many different ways to do it. And then
Right.
I came across that book by Emily Fletcher, Stress Less, Accomplish More. And she's like, hey, there is no one way to do this. It's whatever you choose. The whole point behind meditation is to realign and reground, recenter, reconnect with your true identity, your source energy, and to get away from all that's going on all the time, and just try to create an inner environment in which you can vibrate at a high level. And I remember it's been a few weeks now, but I was meditating and I never thought to ask, a question at the end of my meditation, like, hey, what should I be focusing on right now? I was like, who am I asking that of? My inner being, the source, God. I didn't know, but I felt like this day I needed to ask. And so I did. And immediately, I don't want to tell you I heard voices or anything, but I received a message like, revisit Think and Grow Rich and the book by Wallace D. Wattles, The Science of Getting Rich.
Yep.
Listening to Ram Dass, I heard a story that had me kind of torn between giving everything away for free for the rest of my life or starting to implement a strategy of slowly, and incrementally building a community, and attracting a source of income through that community.
Right.
Ram Dass went to his father, and his father was always chiding him and trying to trigger him. And he said, look, man, why don't you start charging a little more money instead of what it costs to put that out, and make yourself a living? And his dad was the president of a railroad, the president of a college. He was very well off, had hundreds of acres, this property. And Ram Dass said, last week you were telling me you helped your cousin out with some legal issues. And he said, yeah, I did. He was very proud of it. I worked my ass off on that. I got him a hearing, and we did some great progress, and I really helped him a lot. And he said, well, you must have made a bundle. I mean, with all your resources and your knowledge and all the people that your connections. Wow, I bet you made a lot of money off of your cousin. He said, whoa, hey, that's family. I don't charge family like that. He said, well, that's my issue, Dad. I see everyone as family, And I was like, crap, that kind of hit me hard. I get a little emotional just thinking about it, because in the end, we are all family. How do you charge someone for your services, and not feel guilty about it? But then, there's that balance. Here we are in this human form, doing human things, and it takes money to survive, let alone thrive and get ahead. So in Think and Grow Rich and the book by Wallace D. Wattles, The Science of Getting Rich,
right,
I've received different messages than the one that I've internalized, that, hey, there's no need to ever charge for anything ever, and I'm a little torn right now, man. What would you say about these two completely alternate ways of being?
Well, I mean, the money side of me says it's a bullshit story, right? It's just a bullshit story, man. Like, at the end of the day, what do you want for yourself? Well, if you want to have an impact, you have to have the resources to impact, right? If you don't want to have an impact, and you don't invest in resources that can allow you to do that, then not only are you stealing from the world, you're causing yourself to live a smaller life. So whether you're Elon Musk and you're sending, rockets filled with Teslas into orbit, or you're Mother Teresa and you're, gambling on the benevolence of other people, you still have access to resources. So which is more likely to happen, that you are going to happen into access to resources, or you can create a situation where you can trade value for resources, right? That's what Mother Teresa did. She traded value for resources. That's what every great person does. You trade value for resources. And the value determines the amount of resources that someone's willing to give you. So one of the great exercises that we've done at a number of of different places, but specifically with Sai Seminars, was to basically understand that if you look at your bank account or your income stream, it's always telling you the truth about your value to the world. The end, right? So if you've got 400 bucks in your bank account, or you've got 400 bucks coming your way every week, then you are providing $400 worth of value to the world. That's it. So if you want to measure it in terms of dollars, translate the dollars into impact, right? How much does it benefit me specifically? Like if I'm talking to Pete Jones, and Pete Jones has all this amazing content and he has all this knowledge that he's acquired, and he's put in thousands and thousands of hours writing and reading and studying and giving, and yet he has to go to his 40-hour-a-week job, and he cannot give me that or give everyone that on a regular basis because his job is the limiting factor. Who's benefiting from that? Not as many people as would benefit from that as if Pete Jones was charging enough money to live a life that allowed him to create content 24 hours a day, right? And so at the end of the day, if you're if you're concerned about money, you have to realize that that's coming from scarcity, and that there's plenty of resources in the world, and that the best way to, help people who quote unquote can't afford to pay you is to be in a position to where it doesn't matter if they pay you or not. And the only way that you're going to get there is if you acquire some freaking resources.
Mm-hmm.
You have to acquire some resources. That's it. And so at the end of the day, what can you do? What can you, who can you serve? What product can you create that you can trade for value, whether it's money, whether it's lodging, whether it's groceries? Like, what is it that can allow you to exist in your highest and best form? What steps do you have to take to get there? Well, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be letting go of that scarcity mindset around charging people. And family is the worst. I mean, I'll just be real honest with you. If you're not charging your family, then you're basically saying that the people you care about and love the most, you're going to allow them to basically nickel and dime you to death, even though you're giving them your best. Like if I was working with my my family, am I going to work harder for them than I would a stranger on the street? Probably, right? So I'm going to be working harder for them. I'm going to be more invested. I'm going to be, so much more tied up in their outcomes than I would be for someone off the street. And yet I'm charging them less or not charging them at all. What is the fair exchange in that? There's no fair exchange in that. That's them taking advantage of you. And actually it's you allowing them to take advantage of you. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And we get more of what we allow.
Yeah. And anything given is going to be valued less on their end. So what's going to happen is you're going to create a situation where you do your level best, you're most invested, you're giving them every single good thing you've got. They're not paying you what you're worth. So you're going to resent that at the end of the day, and they're not going to value it because they're not paying you for it. Yeah. The end. I hired a business coach 2 months ago for 2,500 bucks. Now the 2,500 bucks covers exactly 1 month. So I'll be paying another 2,500 bucks every single month as long as I'm with this business coach. That's more than a mortgage payment for me, right? So at the end of the day, I am doing my level best to get through the material and work as hard as I can to create a result because I am invested. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, yeah. People that pay attention, and they just do more.
Exactly. But I could sit back and say, oh, well, that's just too much, and blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, my coach has $100,000 a month business. Well, is he doing the wrong thing because he's making money? Well, no, he's serving other business owners and they see value in his service. So they're paying up for that. Right.
So you're investing in yourself by hiring this coach, and it's going to result in progress financially for you. And I'm guessing that's why you're doing it.
Yeah. I mean, anytime you invest in a process or a coach or a trainer, what have you, what you're buying is time, right? So it might take me 10 years to figure it out, or it might take me 10 weeks, to mimic what someone else did. So how much do I want to waste? Like, what's more valuable, $2,500 or 10 months of time? Well, I'd rather have the 10 months of time, right?
Mm.
Or the year of time, or ever how long it's going to take me. What I'm buying is collapsed time frames. And so for me, it's worth it to collapse time frames and trade dollars for collapsed time frames because I get to the life I want faster. Does that make
Makes
sense?
perfect sense. Yeah.
So
And
the
how much
value,
time do we really have, you know?
that's right. And so at the end of the day, the value is in buying my sort of quick, I want to say quick results, but quicker results. I'm buying those because it's going to give me more life sooner.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
And if I can do that, then it's a perfect relationship. It's completely worth the fair exchange that we've got. Now, on
Mm.
the flip side, if I'm paying someone $2,500 a month to coach me and I get zero results, well, that's a bad deal, right?
Mm.
If I'm doing the work that's assigned to me and I'm not getting the results, then that's a very bad deal. And you would certainly want to be with someone who's going to give you your money back in that scenario, right? And that's what I've got, right? So there's no risk to me. I either get what I want or I get my money back. Big deal, right?
Yeah.
So I'm willing to take a chance on that. And most people are not. And that's why most people will never have or do or be anything other than they are, because they're not willing to take a chance on themselves, either monetarily or with their time or with their way of thinking, and it's always going to be what it is. Well, okay, well, if you're happy with what you got and you're not willing to do something different, and all you're willing to be with is what you have, then you've got your next 5 years, your next 10 years, they're all going to look the same.
Yeah. And I definitely agree with that. When I was starting over in 2014, I mean, I started over with the clothes on my back, and thank God I had a place to live, thanks to my mom and her husband. And I would go and visit my sons. And within 6 months, I had built up enough value uh, in order to change that situation and make it more of what I really truly wanted, which was a place for me and my kids, um, basically a stable job, and then I started thinking, well, if in 6 months I was able to create this, what else can I create? And rather than coming from a fear-based place of lack, um,
Right.
I began to just dream out loud, or I'd write it on paper and then decided where I wanted to go the next 6 months. And then the next 6 months after that. And pretty soon I was saying, well, what about in 10 years from now? And the constant up leveling and upgrading that is available to anyone at any time is just amazing. And I love the point you made about quotes. Those are basically like you're talking about this body being a machine.
That's
Well, it's
right.
a programmable machine. And those quotes are like little programs that we insert and process through them. And those programs are upgradable as well. And one of the main practices that I had in 2014, starting over, was to create a new mind so that I could create a new reality, create a new body, and create a personal reality that I would be proud of someday. And I am. I'm super proud of where I'm at, and I'm excited to see where else I can take it. And I'm always trying to level up, and that's why I surround myself with people like you. Um, I'm very blessed in that way over the years with writing and sharing things. I don't know if you'd say I vibrationally attracted them, but that's possible. I'm now in a different group of people than I used to be, different mindset than I used to be. And a lot of that has to do with what I absorbed from others, like coaches, like you're talking about, mentors, gurus, teachers, whatever you want to call them.
That's right.
There are people that have a massive amount of wisdom and a wealth of knowledge that we can absorb very quickly through reading a book, going through a quote book to be inspired and gain momentum for the day, first thing in the morning, like you're talking about. Mentally and emotionally, I mean, the only person that we have control over is ourself. And unless we can intimidate through fear and manipulate the mind of someone, and then we can somehow use their energy in an inauthentic, dishonest way to take advantage of them. And I think that that's possible, that the government, certain, societal members and different groups, they've made a beautiful financial living doing these things. But I really believe that the opposite is also true, to create from a place of love and to create from a place of abundance in a way that can empower others to really upregulate their immune system, upgrade their emotional and mental status, and really connect with themselves on a physical level. Like you said, just go take a walk, get up, get out, go into nature and reconnect. I think that you've shared a ton of super useful tools just within the last hour that anybody can get started on. And I really love what you do. I really appreciate the camaraderie and the friendship that we've built. I wish that we lived in proximity a lot closer so I could see you a lot more. I would absolutely love to be a part of your gym. What you've done is certainly inspiring to many. And you've got my full support on what you're doing. And,
thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, it would be nice to have you in there.
Yeah,
definitely.
You'd probably laugh for the first month or two, but after that, hey man, I'd be getting her.
That's it. That's it. You got to start somewhere, right?
Oh yeah, there's always opportunities to upgrade in every area of life. I really appreciate what you've done to inspire me and so many others. Keep doing what you're doing, man. You're kicking ass, and I love it. You're always up for a challenge. You always do the hard thing, even if that hard thing looks easy on a rough day. You know, you're always doing your best, and I just appreciate that.
Yeah, of course, man. You got to get out with us on some of these adventures that we go on for sure, whether you're in the gym or not, right?
Yes, sir.
There's always some hard thing to do out in the world, you know, crazy hikes and rucks and all that kind of fun stuff.
I noticed that you got Christina a new rucking vest a while back. How's she been enjoying that?
Yeah, actually, one of our members at the gym owns a video production company called Offensive Marketing Group, and they do a lot of commercials for like the gun world, you know, so the tactical world. So, you know, she was complaining about not having a vest, and so he walks over to the office and comes back and just gives her one because I guess they get a lot of free stuff all the time.
Oh, that's sick. Awesome.
So yeah, he just hooked her up with one, and you know, we ordered up some plates and then got her weighted up, and she was good to go.
Very
so
cool.
Yeah, that was kind of fun.
Wow, you guys seem to literally be getting healthier, happier, more wealthy as you age. It's interesting and inspiring. And I think that's available to anybody. Absolutely. Creating all the time.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
I want to be respectful of your time. Is there anything else that you want to share with the podcast listeners before we end?
Not really, man. I mean, if you have anything for me, I'm happy to keep going for a little bit. Otherwise, you know, we can call it if you need to and get on with the day.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah, we do have some things coming up that I need to be available for, but I really appreciate you carving out some time in your busy day. And
of course.
And I'll just I'm excited to create more with you in the future, and I'm looking forward to seeing the results that brings about. Thank you so much for your time and your energy and all your contributions to me personally and to so many others as well.
Well, likewise, my friend, you're out there doing the work every single day, and you know, you probably don't realize how much you impact the rest of us out there sometimes. I mean, you know, feedback on social media isn't always accurate, right? So I appreciate that and appreciate the work that you're doing. And yeah, for sure, we got to get this regular thing happening. We talked about it a few times, and for whatever reason, we haven't followed through, which goes against my personal ethos. So we got to get that rolling. And yeah, anytime you want to get together, man, let's do it. Let's chat. Let's keep putting good things into the world.
I'll do. Tell Christina hello from us, and hope to see you guys soon, man. We'll have to have you come over so we can just take you kayaking one of these days out in nature. It is.
I'd love to. I haven't been yet, so yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. We've got some extras, man. So anytime you guys got a free weekend, let us know, and we'll make it happen.
I'm up for it, man. I'm up for it.
All right. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, brother.
For all the listeners, thank you so much for listening and supporting the Good in the Head podcast. Please check out all of Jason's work. It's Jason Archer on Facebook and Twitter. Hardwater1. Could you spell that, Jason?
Yeah, it's the word WOD from the CrossFit world, workout of the day. So HARDWODDER. So hardwater.com. We've got some apparel out there, and Hardwater1 is the group on Facebook that's free and open to the public. And we're always posting something interesting in there. usually daily, and Pete's been posting a lot of interesting stuff in there as well. So come join us, and we'll connect around some, some physical, mental, and spiritual hard things, and see if we can advance one another in that way.
Excellent. And the message for today is be yourself, stay an individual. Groupthink can be dangerous. Think for yourself.
Yes.
Empowerment, baby.
Yes. 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 The individual is the smallest minority. That's the minority we need to protect.
Agreed. All right. Thank you so much. If you'll just hang on, I'll talk to you in just a sec.
Sure.